Scott, I'll start with a simple question here. How about the Cuse?
Dude, unbelievable. I mean, you want to talk about being energized for the alma mater, going through what they've been through for the last, 4 or 5 years since the 10-win season. And now having this spectacular. I have not seen this much online buzz and pride about Syracuse since the 10-win season for football or one of the Elite Eight or even Final Four teams for Jim Boeheim and the basketball team. It's spectacular.
That's what I was going to say, because I feel like somebody in your position, and I want to ask you, do you go out of your way to watch Syracuse games I know your schedule might be busy on a Saturday leading into the RedZone, but even if you don't, you're going to hear about it, right? You're going to get texts, you're going to get tweets, you're going to feel it, even if you're not sitting down watching every game. What's that process like for you, though?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've got still my old college buddies, my college roommate. So I played football at Syracuse, as many of the viewers may or may not know. My college roommate was actually not a football player because I was a walk-on. I did not have to live with another football player. All the scholarship guys had roommates that were other scholarship football players. As a walk-on, I had a civilian, if you will, roommate, and he's still one of my best friends from college. And so we'll text all the time. He lives in Pittsburgh. And Jim Hockenberry is his name. And he'll text me, dude, Cuse, that. And then some of my old teammates, Brian Tarrant is a name that some people may remember from way back in the day. He'll text me. He lives in Las Vegas. And we'll be like, dude, that third down, why did they do this? Or what happened there or whatever. So still a lot of passion in my life. And yeah, I absolutely do keep track of them. In fact, if I can pivot my camera for a moment, that is my setup for
look at that
games. That's 5 big screen TVs. That's a 70-inch TV with 50-inch monitors flanked by there. So on Saturdays, football Saturdays, when I'm preparing for RedZone, I sit right over here and watch that wall of monitors with my NFL notes, and I have the best 5 NCAA games on those screens. And of course, I always try and pop up Cuse in one of those monitors.
That's fantastic. That setup's fantastic. Your passion for Syracuse is noted there. And you mentioned, Scott, you were a walk-on. So tell me about that path from Bishop Foley Catholic School to Syracuse, New York. How did that happen?
Yeah. So I was talent-wise, I was probably a Division III football player. Like I could have gone to a Division III or Division II school and would have started. But I knew I wanted to be a sportscaster. And my dad and I did a lot of research to find out that Syracuse has the best sports broadcasting program in the world. It did then, and I still believe it does today. So I knew I wanted to go to Syracuse. Now, they're obviously, at that time, this was 1989 was my senior year in high school. So you're talking about the 87 undefeated team. The next year they had gone to the Hall of Fame Bowl, I believe. They were rolling back then, and they were big, ranked almost every year. So I'm like, look, they're never going to give me a scholarship. Maybe I can walk on. But I was from Michigan. They didn't recruit Michigan at all. So I wrote letters to Dick MacPherson and the coaching staff at Syracuse. And I say letters because I got no responses. And here in my high school mind, I'm thinking, I must have the wrong zip code. Or I must have put the wrong thing down. I mean, certainly they want to respond to me.
Of course.
Telling them, hey, I'm this guy that wants to walk on and be a part of the team. So I think I ended up writing 6 or 7 letters before I ever got a response. And I learned this years after the fact. One of the assistants told me that Coach Mack and the staff were having like a summer meeting about, hey, here's the freshmen we've got coming in. Here's all this, And he had 6 letters in his hand, and he threw them down on the table. There's this kid. I'm sure he was talking like this, the way Dick used to talk. There's this kid out of Rochester, Michigan, who wants to come out here. And I don't do a good Coach Mack, but
you got to get the accent in there too, Scott. You got to get
that's true.
The accent of Coach Mack, there.
You are more practiced than I am. And of course, unfortunately, it's been years since I had interfaced with Coach Mack before he passed. But he said from the persistence of this kid, he obviously wants a shot. And they gave me a 4-day tryout, when the freshmen reported, back then freshmen used to report a week early before the upperclassmen did. And I came out with the recruiting class. Dan Conley was in that recruiting class. And Marvin Graves was in my recruiting class. And I got a 4-day tryout and made the team and ended up staying for 4 years. Yeah.
What's the Rudy moment for you in your time at Syracuse?
That is a great question. In fact, I brought a prop. I don't know if you're interested in this.
I love this, man. It's like you work in TV or something. You're bringing the props here. This is great.
I was Rudy, by the way, and that is a practice dummy. I was on the scout team. I was, George DeLeon, Coach DeLeon, if he wanted to do teach his guards how to trap a defensive tackle, they would put my 200-pound butt in at defensive tackle and just trap me. Every guard on the team got a chance I was just come across and get trapped, because they didn't care if I got an injury. There's no big deal because, anyway. So my Rudy moment, my junior year, still on the scout team. I was on the scout team all 4 of my years. And I was named the scout team player of the year by the coaching staff, and which was like big deal, but it was as good as I could be. And it was as much value as I could add to the football team, was giving the starters the best possible look and the best energy and 100% effort to get them ready for the games on Saturday. And as being named Scout Team Player of the Year, I was awarded this Syracuse staff T-shirt. This thing is, Brent, 30 years old.
It's not even orange. I mean,
It's not. It's a champion. Yeah. This was something that Kyle Federley and the equipment staff would give to, the coaches would wear this during practice. And that's why it's not like, orange colored or whatever. This is one of my most, I host one of the most popular football shows on television. This is one of my most prized possessions in my football life. The fact that they would recognize me or honor me for the hustle and determination that I displayed. So I guess that was my Rudy moment. And I was shocked when they did it. By the way, one of the guys, was Joel Collier, was a graduate assistant coach.
Yep.
And then it was a name that's familiar to football fans, Scott Pioli.
Yes.
Scott Pioli was a graduate assistant under Coach P, maybe Coach Mack for a year, and then maybe Coach P. And then Pioli went on to win 3 Super Bowls with the New England Patriots, being Belichick's right-hand man, basically the general manager of those New England Patriots teams, and then went on to be a general manager of the Kansas City Chiefs before Andy Reid got there. So he went on to huge success in football, and he was one of the graduate assistant coaches that voted to name me the scout team player of the year. So, yeah, that was fun.
But does he have one of those shirts?
I got to ask him. I can text him and ask him if he's got one of those shirts. There's no way he has. I doubt that anyone has one of those shirts, because who would save it other than me? Because it was like, that and my game jerseys from the bowl games are my most prized possessions. But I earned that one there, and I'll never get rid of it.
He's got a Super Bowl ring or 2. You got a shirt. I think you win that.
Oh, good.
So you mentioned it. Coach Mack, Coach P, there was that crossover there. Coach Mack recruited you. You go into the Coach P era there. You guys, especially those last 2 years, I mean, they were good all 4 of those years, but those last 2 years, I think you only lost 4 games.
Yes.
When you think back to that era and the crossover and just everything that was happening, what are the moments that pop for you?
Man, my last game was the Fiesta Bowl, January 1, 1993, the 92 season, 93, January 1. We beat Colorado, a loaded Colorado Buffalo teams. And for the old heads watching this right now, you'll remember that Colorado used to be right up there with Oklahoma and Nebraska when they were rolling, in the old Big 8.
They won a title in 1990, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Say it again?
They won a title, I think, right?
Yes, they split a title. That was back when the titles used to get split. They split a national championship one year. maybe sharing it with Notre Dame. I can't remember who it was, but yeah, they were awesome. And they were in the top 10 and we were in the top 10 playing in the Fiesta Bowl and winning that game as a walk-off, as a walk-on, but a walk-off win to my collegiate career was unbelievable. We played Ohio State twice. Once in the Hall of Fame Bowl in January 1, 1992. That was Kirk Herbstreit quarterbacking that team.
Right. That's right.
Then Ohio State the next year came into Syracuse, came into the Dome and beat us when we were ranked. Ohio State had just lost the game at home. We were hugely favored and whatnot. In fact, Herbstreit still tells the story of how he speaks. He is the voice of college football these days. When he speaks on game day morning and they're doing the big, they're hyping up the big game that night, he knows that these kids, especially a night game, these kids are sitting in their hotel room and they're watching television, and whatever the talking heads say, they go the opposite direction. They're like, oh, they think we're going to lose by 2 touchdowns? Because Herbstreit said that was the exact experience he had as, I think he was a senior that year. I was a senior that year. It was a night game at the Dome, and Ohio State was sitting in their hotel in Syracuse, getting ready to go to the Dome. So they're watching the morning pregame shows, and everyone was saying Syracuse is going to kill them. And Herbstreit tells a story of how the doors in the hallway of the hotel opened up almost simultaneously. Everyone stuck their heads out, saying, "Do you hear what these are saying about us?
Wow.
We're going to go kill them." And they came in and they shocked us, beat us by, I think it was like 10 points, but that was one of only 2 games we lost that year. And then when on the other game was undefeated number 1 Miami with Gino Torretta, who won the Heisman Trophy that year in the Dome, one of the more famous games probably in Dome history, even though it was a loss for us.
Yeah.
And then we ran the table otherwise. And Brent, if I might, what I'd like to say something, because really, this is the excitement about this team right here. I think this is a beautiful thing. And I know, the way Coach Mac, the way Coach P would approach this weekend. And here it is. It's a beautiful thing. They'd say 2 things about it. Both of them, I know for a fact, would say 2 things about it. They would be in the team meeting room on Wednesday, which is always Coach P always used to give a big speech on Wednesday because it was preparing you for the whole week of practice.
That makes
he
sense.
would be like, you're going to be pumped up for the game. You don't need a pregame talk, 30 minutes before we go and kick it off. You're already at a fever pitch. What I need you to do is lock in and focus on practice, on the game plan, put everything else aside and focus. So he would give a big speech usually on Tuesday or Wednesday, I guess it was, for the practice week. And he would say this: men, you're either one of them, Coach Mac or Coach P, would say to this team, you're undefeated, you're ranked, people are throwing bouquets at you. It doesn't mean anything. In fact, it's poison. It's poison. And you know what poison is? It's fine if it's on the shelf and it's you keep it out of arm's distance. If you ingest it, you're dead. I remember Coach P telling us that because we would be ranked. We'd have a great record. We'd be getting accolades. Different star players on our team would be getting national accolades and stuff. He's like, that's poison. You keep it on the shelf. At the end of the year, you count up how many wins and you see where they say you're ranked in terms of that. But during the season, you ingest that, all that praise, all the record, the rankings, you're dead. So I would say Coach Mac and Coach P would tell this team that. And here's the other beautiful thing that Coach Babers has in his favor. They're ranked, they're undefeated, and yet he can still play the ultimate card in football. Nobody thinks we're going to win this game this weekend. There's not a person in the world who's picking us to go to Clemson and beat them. And Dino's going to be playing that card, and rightly so, because those young men need to know that this could be the biggest game of their lives if they're able to pull it off. But the pressure's off because nobody thinks they're going to go into Death Valley, or very few, I would think.
Well, that common thread, Scott, is interesting because I just did a column that came out. We're talking on Wednesday here. It came out today, and I talked to a bunch of guys from the 1987 team, and their mantra was 1 down, 1 to go.
Yep.
This team now says go 1-0 this week.
Yep.
Message you got from Coach Mac and Coach P, like it's the ultimate cliche, but it seems to work that if you approach it that way, good things will happen. By the way, I did my Coach Mac. Can I do my Coach P for you?
Oh, yeah. Hit it.
Okay. I can't do like the emotional Coach P giving you the speech, but I can do like Coach P when he used to talk to the media. Okay, ready? He'd kind of have his glasses at the end of his nose, be like, and number 7, he's going to be a tough guy, and he's a good player. And number 12, we're going to have to deal with him. He's very multiple in what they do, and we're going to have to play tough defense, and we're going to have to go out there and we're going to execute. Out there, Donnie. And so there you go. There's my Coach P.
That's pretty good. I would say he had a little bit more off to the side of his mouth sometimes. You'd be like, man, sometimes it's funny. I will conflate. The older I get, I'll conflate my Coach P and my Coach Mac impersonations. But some of my old teammates, they had it down pat. And he used to always say Fanny to us. I don't know if he would say that to you in the media. Right. He would never say, you know what, you're going to have to go play your off. He would say, you're going to go play your fanny off.
Knock them on your fanny.
That's right. Knock them on their fanny.
That's right.
Yeah.
By the way, but Scott, Coach P, still out there, Carolina Panthers.
It's unbelievable. He's a lifer.
Yeah.
He's a lifer, And the funny thing was, you may or may not remember this, he was a walk-on himself back in his collegiate days.
That's right. Yeah.
He was a walk-on under Joe Paterno at Penn State. And so I always thought we would have some kind of a kindred spirit thing. But when he took over the program, man, he was hard on the walk-ons. Probably because Joe was hard on them. And it was like, this is your role. Your role is to sacrifice your body. If you get beat up in practice, that's the name of the game. You want to be on this roster? You want to play a part in here? Your part is getting the starters ready for Saturday. And I was happy to embrace it. And I bump into him every once in a while. I bump into him. And he still is, he never watches sports on TV. No. He doesn't. I don't think he even knows what NFL RedZone is.
Probably not.
No, it's unbelievable. Yeah. And I'm like thinking, hey, Coach, I made it after all these years. I made it to the NFL, and all that. And he's just like, are you happy? Is your family good? All that type of stuff. And yeah, Coach P, he was a beauty, and Coach Mac, same thing.
So Carolina Panthers, Anish Shroff is there now. He's the play-by-play voice, Syracuse guy. So we talk about this every time we get into it with people who went to Newhouse, right? The Newhouse Mafia, the Army, whatever you want to call it, they're out there, right? What I want to know is when you were back here at Syracuse, here we are talking about Coach P and Coach Mac as your mentors football-wise. Who were your Newhouse mentors? And that could be people that were out there in the real world that would come back and talk to you, or professors, or people that really kind of guided you in the path you ultimately went down and being a broadcaster.
Yeah. Well, mentor is a different word that I would use. I would say inspiration. Bob Costas was and is one of the greatest to ever hold a microphone. And I know different people have different opinions on Bob. But Bob Costas was one of the main reasons I went to Syracuse. And then when I got there, there was a guy who was a handful of years older than me, who was just starting out his broadcasting career, but you could tell he was absolutely going to be fantastic. He was at the CBS affiliate in Syracuse during the time. Mike Tirico was basically just starting off, and he was local. I remember him interviewing Pat O'Neill. Do you remember the name Pat O'Neill?
For sure.
The nickname was the Weapon, because he would knock punts 50, 55 yards downfield. Every kickoff that he wanted to go through the end zone, he could kick it to the back of the end zone. I remember Mike Tirico interviewing Pat O'Neill on my team, for some reason. And I was watching Tirico to see how he was interviewing, not O'Neill, how he handled it as a player. I wanted to see how the broadcasters handled it. So Tirico, and then a guy who gave me a first break in the business, Dan Horde. I don't know if you know Dan or not, but he's the Bengals play-by-play broadcaster. He's a local broadcaster in Cincinnati. He's the Bengals play-by-play. I believe he does the Cincinnati Bearcats as well, college football.
That's right.
But he was just out of Newhouse and was at the local CBS, and he hired me as like a freelance producer to go into the CBS station at the time and just be around people that were doing what I wanted to do for a living. That was invaluable experience. And then I'll throw one more name out to you, who was a peer of mine at Syracuse at the time, a fellow student, Dave Pash. Dave Pash, amazing play-by-play broadcaster. He does ESPN college football, ESPN college basketball, ESPN NBA basketball. He's also the Arizona Cardinals play-by-play man on radio. Dave Pash, an absolute just a broadcast wonder. And he was a contemporary of mine at Syracuse, and we pushed each other as wannabe sportscasters when we were, 19, 20 years old.
You left out Dave Pash is the best part of his resume, Scott. Wrangling Bill Walton.
Oh, well, yeah, that's what he had.
Yeah. So, there's no man alive. Jason Benetti can do it too, another Syracuse guy. But somehow Dave Pash has the patience of a saint.
Yes, he does.
With Bill Walton day in and day out when they're doing college basketball games.
Yeah, him and I will text about that every once in a while. Or I always, even if I miss Pash's broadcast with Walton, if they're usually doing like a West Coast game or something like that. If I miss it, Dave will always put up a clip like on his social media or something about a conversation that they had where Pash is trying to talk about the 3-point shooting from one team and Walton's off there talking about, what herbs he found in the desert that he can put into a pipe or something. And Pash wrangles him back in. And yeah, he does. He has the patience of a saint for sure.
All right, Scott, before we let you go, we should get some NFL talk in here. And the topic du jour, I got my Bills hat on. So I think you know who I think's going all the way this year. I did pick Bills Eagles for the Super Bowl. And
did you really?
I did. That was my pick.
Jalen Hurts, you were a believer before this season. Okay.
I took a leap of faith on Jalen Hurts. I just liked everything else about that team. And I said, if the quarterback can do just enough, that's a Super Bowl team. So we'll see what's up. But kind of the topic du jour, I guess, in football is there's a lot of attention, again, on late hits, quarterback hits, the whole thing with Tua, right? And just how that all kind of intermixes and how officials are calling the game. Like you're sitting there watching the red zone. The exciting stuff, of course, is the touchdowns and when we go into the witching hour and everything. But you're also seeing a lot of these calls and how they're called. And Gene Steratore jumping in and analyzing this. So far, what's been your big takeaway about the quarterback hits and how this is being handled and maybe what they do from here?
The NFL is amazing. It's not only the most popular sport in our country by a lot of metrics, it's maybe the biggest form of entertainment in our country. And as a massive industry and such a publicly viewed industry. Oh, you got someone excited. Let's see if they're arguing against what I'm going to say about these calls right now. The pendulum swings, and the NFL can be reactionary and almost overreactionary sometimes. And yeah, they want to protect the quarterbacks, 100%. All these officials, when they're not officiating, they're watching Monday Night Football, Thursday Night Football, Sunday Night Football. If they officiated an early window game and they're flying out, they're in the airport watching the game. When Tua Tagovailoa got hit and whipped down in the terrible looking injury scene that we had in that Dolphins Bengals game, I think a lot of the officials got even put more mental bubble wrap around the quarterbacks that they would be officiating in their game. And sure enough, within a week or two, we got Tom Brady in a routine sack where Grady Jarrett of the Atlanta Falcons got him down to the ground the way that a defensive tackle should absolutely get a quarterback sack, and got the penalty flag. And then the one on, what was the other one? It was the Mahomes one, I think. Or no, it was opposite. It was Chris Jones of Kansas City.
Tripped Josh Allen, yeah.
Exactly. And stripped the football, so it looked like he put his body weight on him, but he couldn't put his arm down to brace the way they tell you to brace around the quarterback's body to insulate him. He couldn't do that. He did it with one arm, but he had the ball in the other arm. Yeah. And that's a non-reviewable play. It was a total miscall. So I think the pendulum swung back, and these were in high-profile games to high-profile quarterbacks where the calls were missed. And now I think you watch, there's going to be a play or two where there will be roughing the passer that it isn't called. It's the human element. I hate to say that because fans don't want to hear that. They want officiating perfection. I mean, I do too. I think the officials do as well, but it's not going to happen. And I think they get it mentally in their head that, this is something I saw recently and we've got to kind of bring it back over here. And it's an overcorrection sometimes. the NFL is not going to change anything during the season, but it would not surprise me if the competition committee took a hard look at it in the offseason, saying maybe we add another element to what is reviewable under the current replay rules that we have. And that could be, was there really head and neck contact? Was there, did he really go low? Was there excessive force on this type of a sack? Because you get in the Brady situation, that very well turned the outcome of the game. Atlanta had all the momentum. They were going to get the football back, and Brady and company were stopped on that play. Then they got a first down and ran out the clock. Anytime it's a game-changing call like that, they got to get it right. And in two high-profile cases, they didn't. And so I'm with everyone. I'm with all the fans who say, figure out a way, NFL. Let's get this right.
Well, Scott, we appreciate you hopping in the double box here to chat with us today. And we'll end on another Coach Mac note just for you. God love you for coming on Syracuse Sports with Brent Axe.
I love it.
Later, Scott.
Brent, enjoy the rest of the season. Enjoy this week. Enjoy the rest of the season. And go Bills, Eagles. I'll file that one away mentally. And if I always go to the Super Bowl, if I'm at the Super Bowl and it's that matchup, I'll be thinking of you.
You might see me there if that's the case.
Let's do it.
You could do this again at the Super Bowl. How about that?
You got it. It's a date.